Hey, what's up guys, the Fringe Monkey here, and today I am very excited to showcase my TFMSTYLE Addon collection, which is a unified suite with over 27 add-ons for now. So I've been working on this for a couple of months now, and I'm very excited to go through every one of them and talk about what everything does. And I've been able to kind of streamline the modular framework here, put everything together. So there's a lot to talk about. Of course, this add-on comes with a lot of features like documentation for each add-on that is included. There's a detachable module option that you can add, which will create a tab for the add-on that you selected, and it's very useful because you don't have to go through the list one by one. You can select the add-on that you want to work with and add a tab right below. The add-on comes with an auto updater, so this is a feature that I'm really glad to have made. So yeah, whenever I upload an update, you'll be able to download it right inside of Blender. And of course, I have a supporters tab because I wanted to include all of my Patreons in it, and I'm going to show you kind of the new memberships that I have for this. Beside all of that, all of the add-ons come with a live update. So the live updates is something that I've included in some free add-ons that I had in the past, and I decided to have that pretty much in all of the add-ons that I have so far. So yeah, there's a lot to go through, and let's get inside of Blender. And as you can see, I already have my TFMSTYLE add-on installed, and all you have to do to install it is grab the TFMSTYLE add-on collection, drop it inside of Blender, and it will ask you if you want to enable this. Click OK, and it will install it right here. Another thing I want to show you is that inside of the add-on section, if you open up the TFMSTYLE add-on collection, you will see below that it has the auto updater on by default. So if you are working offline, or if there's any issues with the updater, you can turn that off. All right, so let's take a look at the add-on itself. So right now there's nothing here, so you can select a generator or an utility add-on. So I decided to separate these two sections. These are all the generators that create objects, and these are some utilities that just help you out in your workflow. I'm gonna go with the first utility, which is the chatter add-on. And as soon as I open this up, now we have the chatter add-on, and the chatter add-on is a multi-room kind of chat room. I wanted a way to be able to communicate with the community, and especially with the add-on itself. If you have some issues or anything like that, you can kind of just post your issue. You can select here in the drop down the add-on that you have an issue with, and in this case I'm just going to test this. So cloud generator. So I'm writing my text here, and you can press send, and the chat system is handled by a Firebase database. So yeah, very easy to implement, and it is live. So whenever you refresh this, the conversation will refresh, and you will see all of the users' feedback. And in the same way, if you have some request, you can select the generator, ask your request, and send it. So, this is a very nice way to be able to communicate with the community in Blender, because, I thought about having a Discord chat, but since I'm almost 10 hours, maybe more a day in front of Blender, I was like, yeah, let's have something here. As you can see, here we have the changelog, which is a chat room that is only accessible to me, and I will be releasing all of the new features that I upload with each update. So in this case, this is the version 1, and yeah, I can add links as well, which is pretty nice. It's something that you don't see often, having a chat room inside of Blender, but yeah, of course, at first I wanted to make this a little bit more user-based, have some username, but I didn't want it to mess with user authentication. So yeah, for right now, every messages is anonymous. I wanted to show you the open documentation. So as you can see, chatter here, you can open the documentation. This will open a new link, which links to my GitHub repo for this specific add-on. And here you can read about the add-on, and you have the detachable module. So in this case, If you want the chatter to be always on, you can enable that, and now you will have the tab on its own, which is very, very nice. And yeah, that's a very smart move on my part. Let's move on to the second utility add-on, which is the displayer. And the displayer, this one is a very simple one. So I have 3 objects now. You know, a lot of time you want to hide some of your object, and you can do that without the add-on. You can select the object, go in the object, visibility, no, viewport display, and turn the displays as bound, wire, solid, and textures. The thing is that when you select all 3 of them, you can't really turn all of them together. But that's why I created the displayer, because now you can just select your objects and apply the display, and it will change all at once. You know, you can select only this one, go to wire mode. So I have a theme now, so you don't really see the other ones. But yeah, and you can reset the display, and that's pretty much what the displayer does. So that's very helpful when you're having a couple thousands of objects, you know, and you want to reach through a specific object. You can, you know, turn these off, and that's how this works. All right, let's go to the Framer add-on. So the Framer add-on is a camera utility. So I'm going to create a new camera. I'm going to jump in, go back just a little bit. I'm going to turn here my output settings so you can see the change. So the Framer add-on is kind of a library preset of different aspect ratios that you can select through. So in this case, if you want a CinemaScope aspect ratio and resolution, you can select it, click apply, and as you can see now, the resolution will change automatically. And I did this because a lot of time when I'm rendering my own projects, I do have a specific aspect ratio and resolution. And, you know, when I don't work on rendering things for a couple of days, I kind of forget my resolution, even though I've been working on the same resolution for a couple of years now. But I added in the vertical tab my own resolution. So that way I can just, you know, select it, and yeah, I'm all set. So there's all mainstream resolution for, you know, even photograph, square, ultra wide, full HD. And in the vertical, there's some Instagram portrait. So there's the 1080 and then the 2K or 3K, I think this is. And the same with the story and reel. Apart from the resolution, the Framer comes with a show guides. So as you can see, I can enable the guides. I can change the colors, the grid division. I can show diagonals and show a safe frame. I made this because you can't really change the colors in the default grid. So I'm going to go to my camera. I think it's in the viewport display, composition guide, and I'm going to enable all of them. So they are here, but since I am using a theme, it's very dark and I can't really see them, right? And there's no option to actually change the color. As you can see here, we can see them a little bit, but yeah, I can simply add my show guide and just add them like that, and now it's very visible, which is something that is missing in Blender. This will adapt also to the resolution, so if you change the resolution, the guides will change as well. The other use of the Framer is to be able to save and load render settings. So I'm going to go to the render settings, and you have a lot of settings here. And you know, sometimes when you're working on different projects, you might need a couple different render settings, and having this option is very helpful because it will load all of the settings that you save. So either it's in performance, grease pencil, your color management, even the clamping, raycasting, the volume. And yeah, pretty much I've tried to add every single data that you can change and adjust in your render settings, apart from the GPU. I think the GPU render, I think it's down below, and it's only with cycle, I think. We have the simplicity, light bake. Yeah, I can't even find the compositor, right? It's inside of the compositor, so the device, I think, is still manual, as well as the noise nodes. But apart from that, most of these will be saved in your preset, which means that you can have multiple presets when working a project. So you can load your preset, apply change, and it will apply the change that you have, also the same resolution that you have. Of course, if you just want to play around with the resolution, you can set this to none, and then this will apply only the resolution. So that's the Framer utility add-on. Let's move on to the Guider add-on. So I'm going to jump out of my camera, and something that I wanted to create was a better floor guide than the default one, because even though this is nice, sometimes you do want more resolution. So you can, of course, go inside of, I think it's here, and change the scale of the floor. But I wanted to have a little bit more control over that. And in this case, I'm going to enable my guide. And as you can see now, this will draw a new guide on top of the one that I have. So I can actually close this one. And I will also have some labels, some units, and it depends how you want to use this, but I wanted to add this to be able to actually see your unit and be able to scale your objects with a better visual representation of your actual scale. And in this case, the label you can change. You can add, I'm going to turn down the label scale. I'm going to stack this, and I'm going to set this to meter. And I'm also going to enable the axis. So now you can really see each point, what position they are in. And you can change, of course, the label color, which is nice. Another nice touch is that you can also change the lines. You can set these to cross, and this will create crosses. And I like to use this with the grid, but without the floor. So yeah, that's very nice. And this is all GPU drawn, so it's very, very fast. You can go, add a lot of these, play around with the spacing. Let's add back the labels. So yeah, now it's going crazy, but you can, of course, tap the label so you don't see them so often. Let's turn this down. Let's turn this back down. You have the point as well. So this will create points. And of course, you can change the colors of those points. I'm going to leave it to cross for now. And I'm going to enable the subgrid. So the subgrid is the same as the main grid, but it will add subgrids in between. You can change the subdivision. The color, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit and put this as cross as well. So if you're doing a presentation in Blender, this might be helpful. There's also the X-ray mode so that you don't see the cross inside of your models, which is nice. An update that I need to do is to enable the X-ray for the tab, because right now they go through the model. So I will fix that in the future update. So beside the flat floor, you also have the circular one, which is nice as well. So I'm going to put this to 4 so we can have kind of a ruler in our original axis. And yeah, so I'm going to enable my subgrid as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on. After that, we have the cube. So I'm going to turn down a little bit of these. I'm going to enable the cube. So as you can see, it's getting crazy, but it's pretty responsive. And I'm going to turn this to cross, maybe points. And now you have your points in a 3D space. I'm going to change the color, increase the spacing. And now you can see how this is represented, which is nice. You can also enable the labels on these. So yeah, it's a very nice little utility add-on to kind of visualize a little bit more your scaling in your scene. So yeah, the Guider add-on. All right, let's move on to the Orbiter add-on. So I already released this for free and I decided to add it inside of the TFMSTYLE collection because it was just a nice fit to have inside of the 3D viewport. So yeah, if you want to learn more about the Orbiter, be sure to check out the full video showcase that I did for this specific one, but that's pretty much what it does. It orbits around an object and you can select dynamically the object, change the speed, reverse, recenter with adjusting the recentering, and while you are orbiting an object, you can still move around your scene, zoom in, zoom out, and go into full screen mode, which is very, very nice. The next utility add-on is the Rescaler add-on. And the Rescaler is kind of something that I wish I had a couple of years back, because I've created a lot of 3D asset packs, and a lot of times, I had to manually rescale them properly to, fit kind of the scaling area. So I had to select my object and kind of guess where I should put it to kind of fit my bound area, then apply the scale and all, and do that for every single object. But with the Rescaler, something you can do is, let's create an object. So I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to scale it like this. So to be able to have the outbound that I want, I'm going to go to object and apply the scale for the cube one. And something that you can do is select the cube. I'm going to set target scale. I'm going to close it. I'm going to select my other object and rescale object. And this will rescale the object exactly to the outbound, to the bounding box of the cube. So as you can see, they all have the same exact length. And yeah, so this is a very nice little tool to have. And I'm going to show you a little bit more. And you can see the scale applied on each object, which is very different, but fits our original cube. And I'm going to take this one. I'm going to turn it down, go to object, apply scale. Now I'm going to select my torus, set target scale. You can see here the target is the torus. I'm going to select my three other objects and rescale to object. And now they are all rescaled properly with the same bounding box of our torus. So the monkey seems a little bit smaller, but since it has big ears, it's actually the right scale on the edges here. I'm going to select my monkey, set target scale. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to enable my center object to target and rescale object. And now they are all going to have the same exact spot as my target object. You can also reset the scale of the object if you haven't applied the scale yet, which is nice. So in this case, this has not been applied. I can reset it to its original scale. Very practical when working with a lot of models. Let's move on now to the Voxelizer. So the Voxelizer is an add-on that voxelizes objects, right? So you can click on an object, select your voxel grid, and voxelize the object. And you can actually do that without the add-on. So I can select my monkey, go to generate, and go to, I think it's the remesh, go to the block, and you have exactly the same output. But the difference with the voxelizer is that it will create a universal voxel grid, because using the remesher, you can't really set a voxel dimension. The octree depth will be defined by the bounding box of each object. So if you have an octet depth of 5 and you try here on this object to add the same thing, so I'm going to go to my remesh block and octet depth of 5, you can see clearly that the voxel scale is not the same on these two objects. And you can play around with the scale, try to add a little bit more or less, but it's going to be very hard to try and make the exact same voxel scale. And the other issue is that even if you use the deformer, the origin point is still here. So, when I was working with this add-on, I was mainly focusing on pixel artists who are making pixel models inside of Blender. And doing it this way, it's very hard to, set your scene perfectly with the same amount of voxels. And yeah, it's very hard. And with the voxelizer, you can select your object, voxelize the object. And as you can see, it will have the 0.5 unit voxel grid resolution. And as you can see, the origin has been updated and is right down in the corner, which means that now if I want to, I can select all of my objects and just place them pretty much where I need to. And in this case, as you can see, this doesn't have the same scale because we haven't applied the scale. So I need to go to my object, apply scale, and now when I voxelize this object, it's going to come to the exact same grid resolution. I'm going to do the same. So the scale is 1, voxelize object. And if you need more resolution, you can simply, scale this a little bit up, object, apply a scale, and now let's voxelize again at level 2. So yeah, for this one, we already voxelized it and I applied the scale. So I need to actually bring a new model and apply the voxelization on this new model. So yeah, and I'm going to bring back a new monkey to be able to voxelize it properly. And the nice thing is that now you can select all of them, go to level 4, voxelize object, and they are all going to have the same voxel grid resolution. They will have the right origin position, and you can, even snap to grid. And in this case, if you want the floor to actually be the same unit, you can go to your floor. And now we are at level 4, which is 0.12 and 50. And now we will have the exact same voxel grid floor, which is nice, which means that now I can move this slightly up, snap to grid, and it will snap to the closest grid, either on the floor or up in the air. So that's the voxelizer. My thought process was that when making pixel art inside of Blender, you really need to have kind of a universal voxel grid that you can play around with and place your model around. So yeah, this is very helpful. And I made this because I'm also working on a game, which is a pixelated game. So hopefully this will come in handy. The other feature of this is that it is also voxelizing the textures. So I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to load an object, which is this statue, and I do have a texture. I'm going to put this here. Material preview. You can see now that the texture has been applied. And since this is an image texture, I can select my object, go to the voxelizer. I'm going to go to level 2. I'm going to voxelize the object. And now the texture as well is going to be voxelized. So the texture voxelization is still in beta. That's why I haven't added any buttons yet, because I'm still having some issues with the right UV and projection mapping. So this will come in a future update, fully optimized. But yeah, this is how this is created. So I'm going to go to level 3, voxelize this even more. And you can see now the texture is voxelized. So this is a very weird object, right? Having some weird texture issues here. So this is what I need to fix. So the texture voxelization is still in beta. So that's the Voxelizer add-on, very useful if you are working with voxel objects. So yeah. All right, so now it's time to move on to the generators tab. So we have 20 generators to go through. And let's start with the first one, which is the circuit generator. As you can see, we have the live update and we have our context-aware editing text here. So I'm going to go on and generate a circuit with the default settings, and this will create a kind of PCB style mesh. I'm going to enable my live edit, and now you can play around with the nodes. And I need to go back to my viewport shader because yeah, I need this to be a little bit faster. You can increase the trace width so I can see a little bit better what's happening. For this case, I'm going to turn down the cluster amount and yeah, play around with the node amount and the seed down below. You can set the max trace length. So in this case, can go as low as 20, I think. You have the line spacing, which will add more space between each line. So there's a maximum and minimum here. So I will have to play around with the slider values with the next update. You have the cluster amount, which will add more clusters. So the cluster will create some weird intersection here. So that's something that I will need to fix at some point, especially when you have a lot of amount of clusters. So I'm going to decrease this just to have a little bit. I'm going to increase my node and I'm going to go to the balance and play around with my seed. And the nice thing with the content-aware editing is that you can click anywhere else. You will have a no circuit selected. And in this case, you can set back your sliders and generate a new circuit. And this will create new traces on top of that, which you can, of course, move up. So you can create layered PCB boards like that. The other thing is that you can fully customize this with some modifiers. In this case, I'm going to select a solidify to have more depth. And yeah, that's the secret generators. There's also some presets that you can choose from and load. All right, let's move on to the second generator, which is the city generator. So the city generator will create a city block. So I'm going to generate my city and I need to zoom out. I'm going to enable the live update. And this will create patches of blocks. And here you will have a couple of options. So the grid size, the block size, the road width, the center height, as you can see here, the height variation, the building density on each block, the building gap between each other, the inner radius, and the building tilt. So, this is a nice way to mess around the city landscape. But of course, having blocks doesn't help anyone. So in this case, what you can do is actually load your own custom building into it. And I'm going to show you that. I just loaded inside of my scene some free building. They are all inside of a collection. And all I have to do is select my master, go to the collection, select the collection that my building are in, and click on generate. This will change all of my blocks into these building, and you can play around with the seed to randomize each building. You can keep the ratio, which will keep the aspect ratio of each building, because without that, it will kind of want to scale everything up. So you can keep the aspect ratio, and let's turn down the inner radius, and now you have your proper city with buildings. There's also some zoning types that you can go through. So these are presets. commercial, mixed, residential, more sparse, and I'm gonna disable the keep ratio, the industrial zone, suburban, and the office park. That's the city generator. I think that for the next update, I will be adding a road system as well to be able to trace the road and be able to add a road object onto it. But for now, this is what it does. All right, so let's move on to the cloud generator. So again, I'm going to enable my live update, generate cloud, and it's going to be very small because we were on the city. So I need to zoom back in. And this is a cloud system. So I'm going to turn down the smooth factor, the smooth iteration, and I'm going to turn back my voxel size and turn down my noise scale, reduce the spread, and the noise is still a little bit high. Maybe turn down the voxel size, elongation, spread, bob radius. We have the seed. We have the blob displace. We have an option to flatten the bottom and add more segments to the blob itself. So right now, you don't really see anything because you do need to have a volume object. So yeah, if you want a couple of customized cloud, this is nice. You have the use elongation angle, which means that if you want your cloud to all face the same angle, you can enable that and then play around with the seed and create a bunch of clouds very quickly. So yeah, that's the cloud generator. Let's move on to the next generator, which is the crystal generator. And I'm going to enable my live. I'm going to generate crystal. And now we have a small patch of crystal. And we have a bunch of settings that we can play around with. The cluster count, the crystal per cluster. So I'm going to add one just to see exactly what this does. The cluster radius, the base radius, minimum and max height to have some variation, the body taper, the max tilt, and of course you also have a bevel amount that will add a very small bevel, and the seed. So if you need patches, you can create your assets. And again, with the smart editing, you can deselect and generate another cluster and change that. You can create another one. And yeah, that's the crystal generator. The next add-on in our list is the DNA generator. So this is a very straightforward generator, easy one to understand. You have your helix. You can play around with the turns, the steps, the helix radius, the max height, the helix thickness, the step thickness. You can change the twist factor. And yeah, that's pretty much what this does. And the nice thing about that is that you can take that object inside of the geometry node and apply a instance on an object or create a volume point. The next one is the enzyme generator. So this is a big one. I've been working on this for a couple of weeks and I just love the way this looks. So this creates protein enzymes. And there's a lot of things going on from our helices to the sheets here and all of the connections. So you can play around with the size, the compactness, the domains, the seed, the helices, max radius, the pitch, helix turns, elongation. So we can see this a little bit here. Elongation, the amount of sheets, the sheets thickness and twist. Going to turn down the ribbon width. And there's a couple of types of proteins. So yeah, it's a very weird generator, but I just love the way this looks like. And I do have a couple of renders to show you. So these are the renders that I was able to create using the Enzyme generator. So, you know, very nice with a subsurface scattering. And I just love the way this look. So yeah, a fun little generator. All right, so let's move on to the next generator, which is the fence generator. So again, I'm going to enable my live update, generate fence, and this will create a fence, right? And you have a couple of options. You can select the type of fence. You have metal, wood, and stone. And inside of each different material, you also have some properties you can change. So square, flat. For the wood, you have rectangular and rounded. And for the stone, you have solid and brick. I'm going to go back to my metal and round. Then you can play around with pretty much the parameters of your fence. So the total length, the height, the section length, the post radius, number of rails, and the rail radius. You can use pickets. So you can have some pickets, square, or even spear, which is nice. You can have a gate and change where the gate is placed. You also have options for the gate. And this gate will change depending on the material that you use. This is for the wood, and this is for the stone. And you also have the option to add a corner. Also open the gate, of course, and the corner that you can add somewhere. That way, if you want to create kind of a closed fence, you can, you know, set your angle, unselect, create a new fence, move the fence. And in this case, I'm going to disable my gate. I'm going to turn this until it fits somewhere like that. Or you can even, you know, don't add it and just rotate this until it fits like that. And now you have kind of your own little square, you know. All right, the next add-on in our list is the grid generator, and I'm very excited about this because I found it very, very useful and nice to be able to create nice grids. So the default one needs a little bit of work, so I might need to add some presets for this one, but let's get working. So this is your add-on. You have some shapes you can select, and you have a lot of different objects you can add inside of the grid as a layered grid. So I'm going to go with the main lines for now. I'm going to change the thickness. I'm going to add, no, I'm going to leave this to 1. I'm going to add maybe 10 columns and 10 rows. I'm going to enable my subgrid, and I want the thickness to be lower. And you know what? Even the main thickness is a bit much. And I can change the subgrid, but this, you know, I think in this case, I'm going to leave it to 3. I'm going to add some dots. And now, you know, I can have dots on every intersection. So you can change the placement, center, edge midpoint, and kind of randomized. I'm going to keep it to intersection, and I'm going to add more segments, maybe an inner radius. Maybe I'm going to change the scale, the dot density. I'm going to go to my cross, change that to center, change the cross side, cross density. I'm going to leave it at 1. I'm going to go to my square. Maybe I want just small square around the crosses. And I'm going to add some ticks. And for the ticks, I'm going to add a lot of ticks. Like that. Just a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to disable my main grid. And maybe I'm going to leave my subgrids. So now we have, a nice little grid. And all of these are here in a layer, which means that you can select one and go in the modifiers tab and add something like a solidify, and change the height, the depth of this, which is nice. So now that I have my grid, I can go to my shape and change this to circular. And now we have a circular grid. And we can still play around with all of our settings. We can go to the hexagonal. So the hexagonal is a nice one, but I do need to increase my scale. Something like this. And yeah, it's a very fun little thing to play with. And you can, change a lot of settings. So you can't animate yet the sliders. And that's something that I have in mind for future updates. But yeah, that's the grid generators. The other generator in our list is the knot generator. So I'm going to enable my live update and generate a knot. So this will create a knot pretty much. They all have parametric settings that you can change around: the twist, scale, variation, segments, curve, and there's a lot of knot type. So I can show you what they look like. This one is nice. This one, we have this septafoil, the granny knot, the torus knot. So this comes with more parameters to be able to play around with the knot options. And the Q parameter to create some weird, variation. And the pretzel knot. And lastly, the Celtic knot. So yeah, that's the knot generator. The next generator in our list is the landscape generator. So I'm going to click on live update and generate landscape. This will generate a landscape, and this specific code generation has been taken from the anti-landscape add-on that is free for Blender. And if you go inside of that specific generator, I made sure to name the proper author for the code. So I did change a lot of things around, because the anti-generator was kind of sparse between 8 different files, and there was a couple thousand of lines that I didn't needed for this specific redesign. So I got rid of a lot of things that just didn't make sense to me. I just tried to keep what was necessary to make all the landscape features, and I introduced a lot of my own little tweaks into it, like the live update, the reset, there's the delete landscape, and the content aware editing as well. You can create everything here, from the size of the noise terrain, the height, offset, have some strata options, some effects that you can add, some erosion settings. So in the original NT landscape, the erosion was not in the tab, it was actually in a small box here that you had to open up and use. So I just added everything properly here in the tab, so you can work around with all the settings that you want. Of course, now I need to go back to my main and add more resolution. And this is looking nice. And now I'm going to right click, shade smooth, and we have our mesh. All right, so that's the landscape generator. And I'm going to move on to the next generator, the light generator. So this is one of my free add-ons that I already released, but I thought it would be a nice addition in this. So I'm going to generate my lights, select all the lights. I need to enable this, yes. So with the light generator, you can, of course, be sure to check out the full video that I have on the channel for the light generator, but you can create and generate lights, change the offset, change the light option, disk, rectangle. You can randomize the light power, so add a minimum power and maximum power, and you have the seed. You can use a specific target where the light will be around, so I can have my object here, go to my light, and I can select the cube, and the light will be set to that object. You can save presets, load presets, and you can change also the spacing method. So yeah, that's the light generator. Be sure to check out the full video showcasing what everything does. All right, so let's move on to our next generator, which is the maze generator. So again, live update, generate maze, and this is our maze. So we have a couple of options. We can choose from rectangular to circular. And this is kind of the mesh. This is the maze algorithm. We have the DPS and the cross-call maze. And we can play around with the maze size, the corridor spacing, the wall size, wall height, the minimum and maximum size, and some inner spacing. So I'm going to adjust a little bit so you can see the spacing, which is nice. And with the content that we're editing, you can click off, generate another one, and create something like that, which is nice. And you can always change that. So the circular has outer diameter, inner diameter. Let's move on to the mesh generator. So the mesh generator just create some basic and some other primitives that I wanted to have inside of Blender. Now I'm going to go through the primitives. So we have a basic polygon with the segments. We have the star. We have the super ellipse, which is nice. We have the flower, number of petal depth, the plus sign, the cross, which is a little bit different than the plus sign, the crescent object that adds kind of a inner mask into it, the arc, which is this, basic arc, the gear, which create a gear, and the event disk, like that, yeah. And that's the 2D object. So let's switch to the 3D object. We have our first object is the column. So this will create a column. We have the dome that will create a dome. We have the gear, which will create a 3D gear. So I need to set the twist to 0. The depth may be a little bit lower. The gear amount, roundness, hub ratio. We have the bolt, the size, shaft radius, shaft length, head radius, head length. Pretty straightforward as well. We have the capsule. And I don't know why the capsule is not a default primitive inside of Blender. But yeah. Capsule. You have the geometric sphere, which is another type of sphere. And we have the buckyball. And again, I don't know why the buckyball is not a primitive object inside of Blender. Very, very nice ball here. Next in our list, we have the molecule generator. So again, live update and generate molecule. And this is a little fun one that I wanted to have. For now, it just has a bunch of different molecule parameters. So you can choose what you want, generate, and this will generate that specific molecule type. 3D lattice. We have this weird one, retinol, iron. I'm not going to pronounce the name, but yeah, you get the idea. Copper sulfate. This one. This one. Protein nanotube. The quartz lattice. Carbon gauge. Another type of lattice, and you can, play with the atom radius and the bond radius. Another type of lattice, and after that you have a lot of a more basic molecule. So yeah, there's a lot of things to go through, and I'm going to add even more at some point. This is a nice one. So yeah, that's the molecule generator. Very easy to use. You just have to select your preset and load that in. Right, the next generator in our list is the neural generator. So let's live update again and generate neural. This will create kind of this synapse connection with a couple of settings: branch, depth, spread, seed, branch angle, length decay, some twist, some thickness, the resolution, and some tip taper. So yeah, you also have a couple of patterns: radial, organic. And we have the tree, which will create a tree type kind of neural. So yeah, this is the neural generator. The next generator in our list is the particle generator. So again, live update and create particle. This will create just particle in your scene, and you have a couple of options: particle count, radius, thickness, noise scatter, seed, minimum and maximum scale of this particle. And you have a couple of different method. You have the galaxy one. So I'm gonna try to show you how this looks like. So yeah, this is how the galaxy looks. You can add some arms, increase the speed, the spin, noise. You have the ring method. And the nice thing about that is this is creating a geometry node, so you can jump inside of your geometry node and, play around with this. The next generator in our list is the rock generator. So again, live update and generate rock. This will create a rock that you can kind of chip as you go along. So I'm going to go to my erosion setting. And now, as you can see, you can add chips and you can take off part of the stone. So with chip 1, just have one piece missing, and you can increase that. And there's a lot of different options: the chip radius, the jitter, onboard outward bias, some cut noise to add inside of your rock. So of course you will need to add some subdivision to be able to see, to have a little bit more details. Apart from the erosion setting, you have some weathering settings. So right now they don't seem to be doing a lot, so I will have to revise this. Some surface details that also need some revision, but you also have the flat bottom. So if you want a flat bottom, you can have that. And I made this to be able to create quickly some, rock that you can either continue sculpting on your own or just have as a very small scale and be able to disperse in your scene, scatter around in your scene. So yeah, very nice little addition to have. The next generator in our list is the shell generator. So let's again live update and generate shell. And I might need to tune the default preset for now, but yeah, you will have to play around with all of these settings to be able to create a nice looking shell. So yeah, I'm almost getting there. Shade smooth, but you get the idea. That's how you create a shell. And I will try in next update to add some presets that you can have to start with. But yeah, that's the shell generator. The next generator in our list is the Spline generator, and this is as well a generator that I already released for free, and it was a nice addition. And I'm not going to go through each and every spline because we have a lot of splines here, so be sure to check out the video that I released specifically for the spline generator. And of course, you can download this for free as well. So yeah, this is the spline generator. And our last generator in our list is the Stair generator. So I'm going to click on that, live update, generate stairs, and this will generate stairs. That's pretty much it. You have the step count, the width, the depth, the height, the thickness, and you have a couple of different models. The spiral, which is nice, and the L shape stair, which adds kind of a corner here that you can adjust like that, which is nice. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's the end of the showcase of the 27 add-ons that I created specifically for the TFMSTYLE add-on collection, and it's been a long video, man. And I hope you will like this add-on. You know, I put a lot of work in this to be able to make this as good as it is right now, and it will only get better from now on. I do have a couple of generators and utilities that I'm currently working on that has not been finished for the version 1 release, so I will add more add-on as I go along. So yeah, with your help, your support, and your feedback, I will be able to make each generator better. Be sure to let me know in the chatter add-on your issues, your feature requests. Of course, if you want to be a part of the supporters tab, as you can see here, if you want to become a Patreon, you can go in the Patreon link that I have on the add-on, and this will take you to my membership where you can select which icon you want to have. And yeah, so I will be very glad to have you on board. And I think I went through pretty much everything. And yeah, I hope you like the add-on, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.